Oh, look at him sleeping. He's like a little angel. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Hi! Welcome in, everyone. Well, most everyone. How's it going this evening? Yeah, there's some trolls here, and I'm just not trying to deal with trolls right now, so that's why they're gone. Yes, we are aware that after, like, Russia was, or the Soviet Union was revisionist, but there's not a lot of footage out there, just in general. And it looks kind of cute, so that's why we did it. If you have a problem with it, you can just make your own thing. It's kind of cool like that. Anyways, this is my screen went giant. My new co-host, Blot. Welcome here, Blot. It's only
Hi.
gonna go downhill from here.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so today we are reading Critique of the Gotha program. And we're gonna read the Gotha program first so we know what they're critiquing. Hello. Do you want to start out with that?
Sure.
Yeah, cool.
You ready to roll?
Mm-hmm.
All right. The program of the Socialistic Working Men's Party of Germany, Gotha, May 1875. What? Labor is the source of all wealth and all culture, and as useful work in general as possible, only through society, so to society, that is to all its members, the entire product belongs. While as the obligation to labor is universal, all have an equal right to such product, each one according to his reasonable needs. In the existing
Oh, hold
society,
on. Okay, there, it should be fixed. Sorry, everyone. Sorry about the echo. Sorry, go ahead. I fixed it.
the instruments of labor are a monopoly of the capitalist class. The subjection of the working class thus arising is the cause of misery and servitude in every form. The emancipation of the working class demands the transformation of the instruments of labor into the common property of society and the cooperative control of the total labor, with application of the product of labor to the common good and just distribution of the same. The emancipation of labor must be the work of the laboring class, in contrast to which all other classes are only a reactionary mass. You want to go to two, or do you want to hit that one?
Um, I can read it. Proceeding from these principles, the Socialistic Working Men's Party of Germany aims by all legal means at the establishment of the Free State and the Socialist Society to destroy the iron law of wages by abolishing the system of wage labor, to put an end to the exploitation in every form, to remove all social and political inequality. The Socialistic Working Men's Party of Germany, through acting first of all within the national limit, is conscious of the internal or international character of the labor movement, and resolved to fulfill all the duties which this imposes on the workmen in order to realize the universal brotherhood of men. In order to prepare the way for the solution of the social question, the Socialistic Working Men's Party of Germany demands the establishment of socialistic productive associations with state help under the democratic control of the laboring people. The productive associations are to be founded on such a scale, both for industry and agriculture, that out of them may develop the socialistic organization of the total labor. The Socialistic Working Men's Party of Germany demands as the basis of the state universal, equal, and direct right of electing and voting, with secret and obligatory voting of all citizens of 21 or of 20 years of age, 20 years of age, for all elections and deliberations in the state and local bodies. The election or voting must be done or must be a Sunday or holiday. Direct legislation by the people, questions of war and peace to be decided by the people, universal military duty, a people's army in place of the standing army, abolition of all exceptional laws, especially as regards to press, unions, and meetings, and generally all laws which restrict freedom of thought and inquiry. Administration of justice for or by the people, free justice, universal and equal education by the state, compulsory education, free education in all public places of instruction, religion declared to be a private concern. The Socialistic Working Men's Party demands within the existing society. You can read the last part.
1. The greatest possible extension of political rights and liberties in the sense of the above demands. 2. A single progressive income tax for state and commune instead of the existing taxes, and especially of the indirect taxes that oppress the people. 3. Unrestricted right of combination. 4. A normal working day corresponding to the needs of society, prohibition of Sunday labor. 5. Prohibition of labor of children, and of all women's labor that is injurious to health and morality. 6. Laws for the protection of the life and health of workmen, sanitary control of workmen's dwellings, inspections of mines, factories, workshops, and home industries by officials chosen by the workmen, an effective Employers' Liability Act. 7. Regulation of prison labor. 8. Workmen's funds to be under the entire control of the workmen.
Okay, so that was the Gotha program, right? And now we're going to hear Marx's critique of it. Let's see what Marx thought.
Do you want to start with the forward, or are we going straight to 1?
Let's see.
A forward just kind of lets people know why they cut certain bits, because it was like personal stuff or out of context. Or,
Sure, you can. You can start by reading the forward. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Forward. The manuscript published here, the covering letter to Brack, as well as the critique of the draft program, was sent in 1875, shortly before the Gotha Unity Congress, to Brack for communication to Gieb, Auer, Bebel, and Liebknecht, and subsequent return to Marx. Since the Hal Party Congress has put the discussion of the Gotha program on the agenda of the party, I think I would be guilty of suppression if I any longer withheld from publicity this important, perhaps the most important, document relevant to this discussion. But the manuscript has yet another and more far-reaching significance. Here, for the first time, Marx's attitude to the line adopted by Lassalle in his agitation from the very beginning is clearly and firmly set forth, both as regards Lassalle's economic principles and his tactics. The ruthless severity with which the draft program is dissected here, the mercilessness with which the results obtained are enunciated, and the shortcomings of the draft laid bare. God, that's just vicious sounding. All this today, after 15 years, can no longer give offense. Specific Lassallians now exist only abroad as isolated ruins, and in how the Gotha program was given up even by its creators as altogether inadequate. Nevertheless, I have omitted a few sharp personal expressions and judgments where these were immaterial, and replaced them by dots. Marx himself would have done so if he had published the manuscript today. The violence of the language in some passages was provoked by two circumstances. In the first place, Marx and I had been more intimately connected with the German movement than with any other. We were, therefore, bound to be particularly perturbed by the decidedly retrograde step manifested by this draft program. And secondly, we were at the time, hardly 2 years after the Hague Congress of the Internationale, engaged in the most violent struggle against Bakunin and his anarchists, who made us responsible for everything that happened in the labor movement in Germany.
It's all their fault.
Yeah. Hence, we had to expect that we would also be addled with the secret paternity of this program. You are the father. These considerations do not now exist, and so there is no necessity for the passages in question. For reasons arising from the press law, also, a few sentences have been indicated only by dots, where I have had to choose a milder expression. This has been enclosed in square brackets, otherwise the text has been reproduced word for word.
Okay. Okay, next part.
Uh, do you want to reread the Gotha part that they are quoting from, or
As they're saying it, like, I mean,
like one? Like so they in
yeah,
smaller text we have like labor is the source of all wealth and
yeah, just read it
all right,
all. Yeah, because we can talk
gotcha.
about it like that.
So going back to the Goth program, one, labor is the source of wealth and all culture, and since useful labor is possible only in society and through society, the proceeds of labor belong undiminished with equal right to all members of society. So the first part of the paragraph, labor is the source of all wealth and all culture. Quote, labor is not the source of all wealth. Nature is just as much the source of use values, and it is surely of such the material wealth consists, as labor, which itself is only the manifestation of a force of nature, human labor power. The above phrase is to be found in all children's primers and is correct insofar as it is implied that labor is performed with the appurtenant subjects and instruments. But a socialist program cannot allow such bourgeois phrases to pass over in silence the conditions that alone give them meaning. And insofar as man from the beginning behaves towards nature, the primary source of all instruments and subjects of labor, as an owner treats her as belonging to him, his labor becomes the source of use values, therefore also of wealth. The bourgeois have very good grounds for falsely ascribing supernatural creative power to labor. Since precisely from the fact that labor depends on nature, it follows that the man who possesses no other property than his labor power must, in all conditions of society and culture, be the slave of other men who have made themselves the owners of material conditions of labor. He can only work with their permission, hence live only with their permission. Let us now leave the sentence as it stands, or rather limps. What could one have expected in conclusion? Obviously this, quote, since labor is the source of all wealth, no one in society can appropriate wealth except as the product of labor. Therefore, if he himself does not work, he lives by the labor of others and also acquires his culture at the expense of the labor of others. End quote. Instead of this, by means of the verbal river and since, a proposition is added in order to draw a conclusion from this and not from the first one. The second part of the paragraph, quote, useful labor is possible only in society and through society. Well, according to the first proposition, labor was the source of all wealth and all culture. Therefore, no society is possible without labor. Now we learn, conversely, that no useful labor is possible without society. One could just as well have said that only in society can useless and even socially harmful labor become a branch of gainful occupation. That only in society can one live by being idle, etc., etc. In short, one could just as well have copied the whole of Rousseau. And what is useful labor? Surely only labor which produces the intended useful result. A savage, and man was a savage after he had ceased to be an ape, who kills an animal with a stone, who collects fruit, etc., performs useful labor. Thirdly, the conclusion, quote, useful labor is possible only in society and through society, the proceeds of labor being undiminished, with equal right to all members of society. A fine conclusion. If useful labor is possible only in society and through society, the proceeds of labor belong to society, and only so much therefrom accrues to the individual worker as it is not required to maintain the condition of labor society. In fact, this proposition has at all times been made use by the champions of the state of society prevailing at any given time. First come the claims of the government and everything that sticks to it, since it is the social organ for the maintenance of the social order. Then comes the claims of the various kinds of private property, for the various kinds of private property are the foundation of society, etc. One sees that such hollow phrases are the foundations of society, etc. One sees that such hollow phrases can be twisted and turned as desired. The first and foremost, well, The first and second parts of the paragraph have some intelligible connection only in the following wording. Quote, labor becomes the source of wealth and culture only as social labor, or, what is the same thing, in and through society. This proposition is incontestably correct, for although isolated labor, its material conditions presupposed, can create use value, it can create neither wealth nor culture. But equally incontestable is this other proposition. In proportion as labor develops socially and becomes thereby a source of wealth and culture, poverty and destitution develop among the workers and wealth and culture among the non-workers. This is the law of all history hitherto. What, therefore, had to be done here, instead of setting down general phrases about labor and society, was to concretely how was to prove concretely how in present capitalist society the material, etc., conditions have at last been created which enable and compel the workers to lift this social curse. In fact, however, the whole paragraph, bungled in style and content, is only there in order to inscribe the Lassallean catchword of the undiminished proceeds of labor as the slogan at the top of the party banner. I shall return later to the proceeds of labor, equal right, etc., since the same thing recurs in somewhat different form further on. And LaSalle, from what I've gathered from this, is much more of a like electoralist. Like we're going to vote in socialism, we're going to use the existing government, and we're going to turn it into what we want. Um, Anti-revolutionary. I don't know how correct I am in that.
We have a question too. How does a socialist society ensure? Oh, I'm hearing myself. Ensure the laborers are not subjugated by the new system. Well, in a socialist society, the workers would be um, like in control, right? So of where they work, it would be a collective decision. Yeah. So they would have far more power than they do now. Uh, if they even.
But they say I'm a
Yeah,
tanky,
true
I'm a
democracy.
tanky, yeah I'm a tanky,
Yeah, I'm
I'm
a
a tanky.
tanky.
We're riding that
Pew,
tank,
pew.
mowing down
The
the
fucking
fucking
snowflakes.
snowflakes.
Oh no, this is sad. I can't hear the sound alerts.
But yeah,
That's all right.
so when you own the means of production, you all, it's like the most democratic system ever because you all have to like talk about what you're going to do. Um, so yeah, they wouldn't actually lose power in a socialist system. They would gain like a fuckload of power. So that's good. Wouldn't new parties just form and fight for power? Well, I boil them. Nice. Nice, Duck. That's nice, Duck. You have nothing better to do. Really? Honestly. That's really sad. That's really sad. I thought you were like an adult. Okay.
Says the girl with blue hair.
You can be a blue-haired adult. Hello.
Can you? Can you though?
Excuse you. I'm literally doing it. Meetings are banned. Yeah, so that's why Duck's banned.
I don't know anything about anything. I heard of blue hair and pronouns.
I do have blue hair and I have pronouns, so I'm
That's
piece
it.
of shit.
I'm unfazed. It doesn't seem to affect me in any way. So having to project any sort of opinion just seems very self-centered. Um, I'm solid. I'm good. I have blue hair. I don't have any hair, so like I have literally no dog in that fight.
So all socializing is banned? Why wouldn't people? What do you? Wait, what? What are you talking about? New parties. Okay, so here's what happens. It depends on what kind of party it is. Like if you're like trying to help the people, then of course you're going to be allowed to like help people with us. But if you're going to be a reactionary, of course you aren't going to be like allowed. Okay, let's continue. Are we at 2 now?
I'm at 2 now.
Okay. You want me to read
Do you want
or
me?
do you want to read?
That is up to you. I know that you do most of this, so you just tell me what to do.
Okay, I'll read until I get tired, and then we'll just switch off. Okay, 2. In present-day society, the instruments of labor are the monopoly of the capitalist class. The resulting dependence of the working class is the cause of misery and servitude in all forms. This sentence, borrowed from the rules of the International, is incorrect in this improved edition. In present-day society, the instruments of labor are the monopoly of the landowners. The monopoly of property in land is even the basis of the monopoly of capital and the capitalists. In the passage in question, the rules of the International do not mention either one or the other class of monopolists. They speak of monopolizers of the means of labor, that is, the sources of life. The addition sources of life make it sufficiently clear that land is included in the instruments of labor. The correction was introduced because Lassalle, for reasons now generally known, attacked only the capitalist class and not the landowners. In England, the capitalist class is usually not even the owner of land on which his factory stands. Well, that's very important. Dale. You go. Dale?
Dale.
I'm fucking idiot.
You know that entirely, extremely relevant character Pitbull?
I thought it was Dale Earnhardt.
Dale Earnhardt. That's a communist icon.
Right? Exactly. I was like, Dale Earnhardt doesn't look like Dale, but Dale makes way more sense. Hi, welcome in. I'm just being white. I'm sorry. Okay. 3. The emancipation of labor demands the promotion of the instruments of labor to the common property of society and the cooperative regulation of the total labor, with this fair distribution of the proceeds of labor. Promotion of the instruments of labor to the common property ought obviously to read their conversion into the common property, but this is only passing. What are the proceeds of labor? The product of labor or its value. And in the latter case is the total value of the product or only that part of value which labor has newly added to the value of the means of production consumed. Proceeds of labor is a loose notion which Lassalle has put in the place of the definition or of the definite economic conceptions. What is a fair distribution? Do not the bourgeois assert that the present day distribution is fair, and it is not in fact the only fair distribution on the basis of the present day mode of production? Are economic relations regulated by legal conceptions, or do not, on the contrary, legal relations arise out of economic ones? Have not also the socialist sectarians the most varied notions about fair distribution? Have not also the most varied. Okay, so he's just saying they have like there's a lot of variance between what we all consider fair distribution. Right. To understand what is implied in the connection by the phrase fair distribution, we must take the first paragraph and this one together. The latter presupposes a society wherein the instruments of labor are common property and the total labor is cooperatively regulated. And from the first paragraph, we learn that the proceeds of labor belong undiminished with equal right to all members of society. To all members of society? To those who do not work as well, what remains then of the undiminished proceeds of labor? Only those members of society who work? What remains of the equal rights of all members of society? But all members of society and equal rights are obviously mere phrases. The kernel consists in this, that in this communist society, every worker must receive an undiminished Lassallean proceeds of labor. Let us take, first of all, the words proceeds of labor in the sense of the product of labor. then the cooperative proceeds of labor are the total social product. From this must now be deducted, first, cover for replacement of the means of production used up. Wait, hold on, I gotta read that again. From this must now be deducted, first, cover for replacement of the means of production used up. Second, additional portion for expansion of production. And third, reserve or insurance funds to provide against accidents, dislocations caused by natural calamities, etc. Oh, we got one. Daddy will never simp. What a hilarious, right? Like, wow. Oh, hold on, I'm just looking at the chat for a second because there's a lot of things going by. Oh. A mega party? That just means there's a mega party subjugating a minority class. No, that's not how that works.
But the working class has a dictatorship of the proletariat.
Yeah, and we want them to oppress, like, the bourgeoisie, like suppress.
Oppressing?
Not oppress, suppress.
Sure. But in the context of this, just for wordplay. I'm rough and bad with those things. Mostly I'm just typing when I'm not talking.
Gross commies. Well, your mom's gross, so there you go.
Rude?
Yeah. Pff, got him. Okay, where was I at?
Everyone's mother is lovely.
That's not true. Everyone's mother is not lovely. Okay. These deductions from undiminished proceeds of labor are an economic necessity, and their magnitude is to be determined according to available means and forces, and partly by computation of probabilities, but they are in no way calculable by equity. There remains the other part of the total product, intended to serve as means of consumption. Before this divided among the individuals, there had to be deducted again from it, first, the general cost of administration not belonging to production. This part will, from the outset, be very considerably restricted in comparison with the present-day society, and it diminishes in proportion as the new society develops. Second, that which is intended for the common satisfaction of needs, such as schools, health services, etc. From the outset, this part grows considerably in comparison with present-day society, and it grows in proportion as the new society develops. Third, funds for those who are unable to work, in short, for what is included under so-called official poor relief today. Only now do we come to the distribution part, or distribution, which the program under Lassallean influence alone has in view in its narrow fashion, namely to that part of the means of consumption which is divided among the individual producers of the cooperative society. Okay, do you want to read from here?
Certainly. The undiminished proceeds of labor have already unnoticeably become converted into the diminished proceeds, although what the producer is deprived of in his capacity as a private individual benefits him directly or indirectly in his capacity as a member of society. Just as the phrase of the undiminished proceeds of labor has disappeared, so now does the phrase of the proceeds of labor disappear altogether. Within the cooperative society, based on common ownership of the means of production, the producers do not exchange their products. Just as little does the labor employed on the products appear here as the value of these products as a material quality possessed by them. Since now, in contrast to capitalist society, individual labor no longer exists in an indirect fashion, but directly as a component part of total labor. The phrase proceeds of labor, objectionable also today on account of its ambiguity, thus loses all meaning. What we have to deal with here is a communist society, not as it has developed on its own foundations, but on the contrary, just as it emerges from capitalist society, which is thus in every aspect, economically, morally, and intellectually, still stamped with the birthmarks of the old society from whose womb it emerges. Accordingly, the individual producer receives back from society, after the deductions have been made, exactly what he gives to it. What he has given to it is his individual quantum of labor. For example, the social working day consists of the sum of the individual hours of work. The individual labor time of the individual producer is the part of the social working day contributed by him, his share in it. He receives a
Hey,
certificate
wait,
from
hold on.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Mr. Grape? I have things to say to you that would get me deleted. So I'm not going to say it, but just know. Just know, sweaty.
Just
Okay. Continue.
viewing collectivism as parasitic.
It's
Like,
fucking ridiculous. You know what's parasitic? Elon Musk. That's a fucking parasite that I care about. You know who's parasitic? Nancy fucking Pelosi.
individualism is parasitic. Any interaction you're getting from another, you are getting for the sake of yourself. Like that's
Well, you
remember
can't
earlier?
be an individual alone. You literally fucking can't.
I'm an island. I did all this myself.
Yeah, impossible. No.
I was just my mama raised me better. Remember earlier, all mamas
Are not
sweethearts
good,
are like,
but some are good. But
you know,
some are
we're all
good.
just struggling.
For real.
God, I don't know where I stopped.
For real.
How about here? Obviously. Oh, someone atted me. Uh, at some point,
Wait, somebody's in the Discord. Who Caboose, are you a mod in there? Here, hold on, let me make you a mod. Okay, you can continue reading. I'm gonna make Caboose a mod.
let me do my response here. Or I could say it out loud. Yeah, burn tower. Yes, at some point it must end. That being the violence, the oppression, the abuse. Sure. If there is an abuser on an abused person, and the abused person fights back, the it must end happens whenever the abuser is gone. That's what we're trying to get is, the removal of the bad thing. Not like, oh, I've gotten rid of my abuser. Now I need to go abuse someone else. That doesn't make any sense. It's not an endless, perpetuated thing. We're not trying to seek to oppress people for the sake of it and prolong some sort of weird system. That's just taking an idea and running with it a little too far, buddy. All right, we good? Did you solve your problem? I think you're muted.
If you have questions, you can definitely continue to ask them, and we'll do our best to fill you in. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, I am not here because I know answers to a lot of things. I'm here because I can keep a seat warm and read. So I'm going to do that. Continuing on. Here, obviously, the same principle prevails as that which regulates the exchange of commodities. As far as this is exchange of equal values, content and form are changed because under the altered circumstances, no one can give anything except his labor, and because, on the other hand, nothing can pass to the ownership of individuals except individual means of consumption. But as far as the distribution of the latter among the individual producers is concerned, the same principle prevails as in the exchange of commodity equivalents. A given amount of labor in one form is exchanged for an equal amount of labor in another form. Hence, equal right here is still in principle bourgeois right, although principle and practice are no longer at loggerheads, while the exchange of equivalents in commodity exchange exists only on the average and not in the individual case. In spite of this advance, this equal right is still constantly stigmatized by a bourgeois limitation. The right of the producers is proportional to the labor they supply. The equality consists in the fact that measurement is made with an equal standard, labor. But one man is superior to another physically or mentally and supplies more labor in the same time, or can labor for a longer time, and labor, to serve as a measure, must be defined by its duration or intensity, otherwise it ceases to be a standard of measurement. This equal right is an unequal right for unequal labor. It recognizes no class differences because everyone is only a worker like everyone else, but it tacitly recognizes unequal individual endowment and thus productive capacity as a natural privilege. It is therefore a right of inequality in its content, like every right. Right, by its very nature, can consist only in the application of an equal standard, but unequal individuals, and they would not be different individuals if they were not unequal, are measurable only by an equal standard insofar as they are brought under an equal point of view, are taken from one definite side only. For instance, in the present case, are regarded only as workers, and nothing more is seen in them, everything else being ignored. Further, one worker is married, another is not. One has more children than another, and so on and so forth. Thus, with an equal performance of labor, and hence an equal in the social consumption fund, one will in fact receive more than another, one will be richer than another, and so on. To avoid all these defects, right, instead of being equal, would have to be unequal. But these defects are inevitable. In the first phase of communist society, as it is when it has just emerged after prolonged birth pangs from capitalist society, right can never be higher than the economic structure of society and its cultural development conditioned thereby. In a higher phase of communist society, after the enslaving subordination of the individual to the division of labor, and therewith also the antithesis between mental and physical labor, has vanished. After labor has become not only a means of life, but life's prime want. After the productive forces have also increased with the all around development of the individual, and all the springs of cooperative wealth flow more abundantly. Only then can the narrow horizon of bourgeois right be crossed in its entirety, and society inscribe on its banners, "From each according to his ability, to each according to his needs." I have dealt more at length with the undiminished proceeds of labor, on the one hand, and with equal right and fair distribution on the other, in order to show what a crime it is to attempt, on the one hand, to force on our party again as dogmas, ideas which in a certain period had some meaning but have now become obsolete, verbal rubbish. Pappy's throat. Pappy's throat. Oh God, did I lose it? Did I lose where I was? Oh, I did. I need some of the
Verbal
blood.
rubbish, while again perverting on the other a realistic outlook, I believe.
All right, you start reading until I find you.
Okay.
No, I got it.
Okay.
While again perverting, I'm sorry about that. I'm
It's
human.
okay.
I have things.
Whoa, you're human? Disgusting.
I'm programmed to claim so, yes. While again perverting, on the other, the realistic outlook, which it cost so much effort to instill into the party, but which has now taken root in it, by means of ideological nonsense about right and other trash so common among the Democrats and French socialists. Quite apart from the analysis so far given, it was in general a mistake to make a fuss about so-called distribution and put the principal stress on it. Any distribution whatever of the means of consumption is only a consequence of the distribution of the conditions of production themselves. The latter distribution, however, is a feature of the mode of production itself. The capitalist mode of production, for example, rests on the fact that the material conditions of production are in the hands of non-workers in the form of property in capital and land, while the masses are only owners of the personal condition of production, of labor power. If the elements of production are so distributed, then the present-day distribution of the means of consumption results automatically. If the material conditions of production are the cooperative property of the workers themselves, then there likewise results a distribution of the means of consumption different from the present one. Vulgar socialism, and from it in turn a section of the Democrats, has taken over from the bourgeois economists the consideration and treatment of distribution as independent of the mode of production, and hence the presentation of socialism as turning principally on distribution. After the real resolution has long been made clear, why retrogress again? 4. The emancipation of labor must be the work of the working class, relative to which all other classes are only reactionary mass. The first strophe, that's like the first part of a thing. The first strophe is taken from the introductory words of the Rules of the Internationale, but improved. There it is said, the emancipation of the working class must be the act of the workers themselves. Here, on the contrary, the working class has to emancipate what? Labor? Let him understand who can. In compensation, the antistrophe, the second half, on the other hand, is a Lassallean quotation of the first water, relative to which the working class, all other classes are only one reactionary mass. In the Communist Manifesto it is said, quote, of all the classes that stand face to face with the bourgeoisie today, the proletariat alone is a really revolutionary class. The other classes decay and finally disappear in the face of modern industry. The proletariat is its special and essential product. Unquote. The bourgeoisie is here conceived as a revolutionary class, as the bearer of large-scale industry, relative to the feudal lords and the lower middle class, who desire to maintain all social positions that are the creation of obsolete modes of production. Thus, they do not form together with the bourgeoisie only one reactionary mass. On the other hand, the proletariat is revolutionary relative to the bourgeoisie because, having itself grown up on the basis of large-scale industry, it strives to strip off from production the capitalist character that the bourgeoisie seeks to perpetuate. But the manifesto adds that the lower middle class is becoming revolutionary in view of its impending transfer to the proletariat. From this point of view, therefore, it is again nonsense to say that it, together with the bourgeoisie and with the feudal lords into the bargain, form only one reactionary mass, relative to the working class. Has one proclaimed to the artisan, the small manufacturers, etc., the peasants during the last elections, relative to us, you, together with the bourgeoisie and feudal lords, form one reactionary class. I got me when I read it. Lassalle knew the Communist Manifesto by heart, as his faithful followers know the Gospels written by him. If, therefore, he has falsified it so grossly, this has occurred only to put a good color on his alliance with absolutist and feudal opponents against the bourgeoisie. In the above paragraph, moreover, his oracular saying is dragged in by main force without any connection with the botched quotation from the Rules of the Internationale. Thus, it is simply an impertinence, and indeed not at all displeasing to Herr Bismarck, one of those cheap pieces of insolence in which the Merit of Berlin deals. It says the Merit of Berlin is a reference to Hasselmann, chief editor of the newer Social Democrat. Another thing I don't know.
What
What? Who?
what did you say?
No, the
Chief
the
editor.
brackets.
Oh,
Yeah. So
that's like a newspaper.
yeah, it's a 140-year-old newspaper. Man, I dug out 40-year-old newspapers in my house today.
40-year-old.
40-year-old newspapers.
Why? What do you have
because they
such
were
old
there. I found
newspapers?
them.
Wow.
Yeah, it was neat.
Long
They
time
said the
ago.
same things as the one today. It's
What
weird, almost word for word.
did they say?
There was a judge who was speaking to a grand jury, and the judge was quoted complaining about the immoral lethargy of society in America today, that American citizens don't take crime seriously. So this judge is going, be tougher on crime. You should care more about crime. Otherwise, you're immoral. And especially in the 80s, I mean, that's closer to satanic panic time, especially down here in the South.
Mm.
Yeah, you can't just let that slide. If someone questions whether or not you love Jesus, then you have to give a maximum sentence. You must, everyone guilty. Yes.
Oh god. That's how you know you're super Christian. Is if you punish people,
Yeah,
right?
you get it.
That's what my parents thought anyway.
No, it's a love and forgiveness.
Mm.
I'll do a book club on the Bible if y'all ever want. I would love it. Like I still man things, but like I mean I grew up with this. It's one of my favorite books, which I guess is weird to say here.
No, it's not. No, I mean, no. We are not anti-religion at all
There's
here.
there's some really good quotes. There's some
We love banger
good
quotes here.
there's some good examples of things that were not so great that we should talk about maybe and like own up to instead of just like picking and choosing the parts that you like, which is
Wait,
kind
you
of
don't like cherry picking verses?
well, that's how we get these patriotic socialists. Like you just cherry pick the parts that sound good,
That's right. That's exactly what happened.
and then you dot dot dot, and you leave out a couple of pages, and you bring it back. Okay, and just ignore the fact that I trailed off, and we're back. Yeah, back to reading.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay.
What?
Where are we at?
I'm a number 5.
Okay. Do you want me to start or do you want to keep going?
You look like you've been busy. So
Yeah, I was trying to get that sorted out, and I believe that we just did it. So I'm
All right,
here again. Thank you. Okay, yeah, you want me to read? Okay.
Number 5.
The working class strives for its emancipation, first of all, within the framework of the present-day national states, conscious that the necessary results of its efforts, which are common to the workers of all civilized countries, will be the international brotherhood of peoples. Lassalle, in opposition to the Communist Manifesto and to all earlier socialism, conceived the workers' movement from the narrowest national standpoint. He is being followed in this and that after the work for the International. Oh my god, I completely forgot that I have this thing. It's good. Oh, I have to turn it on. Dang it. Hold on. Hold on, people. I'm gonna do this thing. Let's see.
You're ugly. You are disgusting. I'm going to kill you. Give me $200.
Wait, can you talk again?
Yeah, what's up?
Okay. Have you been able to hear him this whole time, you guys? Have you been listening?
Somebody would, I assume, would say something. Not that I've been
I
able
would
to
hope
listen.
that they would say something, but you don't know. I wish you could hear this. You know what? I'm going to share my screen with you so you can just hear like when the sound alerts
Hi,
go off
Caboose.
and stuff.
Was that quiet?
But here.
You're ugly. You are disgusting. I'm going to kill you. Give me $200.
I can't hear whatever that is.
Dang it.
What is that?
Well, it's Dr. Phil.
Oh. The eminent leaner in morality and intellectual pursuits, Dr. Phil.
He said you're ugly. Yeah, wait, hold on. What did he say?
You're ugly. You are disgusting. I'm going to kill you. Give me $200.
You're
Oh,
ugly.
that's-
Did you hear it?
I heard him say that I was ugly and disgusting. And
I'm gonna kill you. Give me $200.
oh,
I like
That's-
it. It's a really good sound alert.
That I was out of note. I didn't know we had that one.
No, it's a sound alert. Or it's like this button I have, and I can just
Mhm.
press it, and I can make all
Oh, you got a
sorts of
soundboard. Oh, fuck
yeah,
yeah, soundboard.
yeah. And so I have
Yes.
like a whole bunch of like cool stuff, like
Yeah, you need some of that little vuvuzela sound.
for real. Okay. Um, wait, was I reading? Okay, I was
You
reading.
were, and you fucked up because you stopped and you have to find your place.
I completely I got way sidetracked for that one. I don't know what happened. Hmm. Oh, my buttons. I remembered my buttons, and that's what happened. Lassalle, in opposition to the Communist Manifesto and to all earlier socialism, conceived the workers' movement from the narrowest national standpoint. He is being followed in this and that after the work of the International. It is altogether self-evident that to be able to fight at all, the workers must organize itself at home as a class, and that its own country is the immediate arena of the struggle, insofar as its class struggle is national, not in substance, but, as the Communist Manifesto says, in form. But the framework is of the present-day national state. For instance, the German Empire is itself, in its turn, economically within the framework of the world market, politically within the framework of the systems of the state. Every businessman knows that German trade is at the same time foreign trade, and the greatness of Herr Bismarck consists, to be sure, precisely in his pursuing a kind of international policy. And to what does the German Workers' Party reduce its internationalism? To the consciousness of that the result of its efforts will be the international brotherhood of people, a phrase borrowed from the bourgeois League of Peace and Freedom, which is intended to pass as equivalent to the international brotherhood of working classes in the joint struggle against the ruling class and their governments. Not a word, therefore, about the international functions of the German working class. And it is thus that it is to challenge its own bourgeoisie, which is already linked up in the brotherhood against it with the bourgeois of all other countries, and her Bismarck international policy of conspiracy. In fact, the internationalism of the program stands even infinitely below that of the Free Trade Party. The latter also asserts that the result of its own efforts will be the international brotherhood of peoples. But it also does something to make trade international, and by no means content itself with the consciousness that all people are carrying on trade at home. The international activity of the working classes does not in any way depend on the existence of the International Working Man's Association. This was only in the first attempt to create the central organ for the activity, an attempt which was a lasting success on the account of the impulse which it gave, but which was no longer realizable in the historical form after the fall of the Paris Commune. Bismarck, what's that word?
Norddeutsch?
Norddeutsch was absolutely right when it announced, to the satisfaction of its masters, that the German Workers' Party had sworn off internationalism in the new program. Okay, you can go.
Quotes. Starting from these basic principles, the German Workers' Party strives by all legal means for the free state and socialist society, that abolition of the wage system together with the iron law of wages and exploitation in every form, the elimination of all social and political inequality. I like your screen better. I shall return to the free state later. So In future, the German Workers' Party has got to believe in Lassalle's iron law of wages. That this may not be lost, the nonsense is is perpetrated of speaking of the abolition of the wage system. It should read system of wage labor, together with the iron law of wages. If I abolish wage labor, then naturally I abolish its laws also, whether they are of iron or sponge. But Lassalle's attack on wage labor turns almost solely on this so-called law. In order, therefore, to prove that Lassalle's sect has conquered the wage system must be abolished together with the iron law of wages, and not without it. It is well known that nothing of the iron law of wages is Lassalle's except the word iron, borrowed from Gothe's great eternal iron laws. The word iron is a label. I'm going to have to quit doing that. The word iron is a label by which the true believers recognize one another. But if I take the law with Lassalle's stamp on it, and consequently in his sense, then I must also take it with his substantiation for it. And what is that? As Lange already showed, shortly after Lassalle's death, it is the Malthusian theory of population, preached by Lange himself. But if this theory is correct, then again, I cannot abolish the law even if I abolish wage labor 100 times over, because the law then governs not only the system of wage labor, but every social system. Basing themselves directly on this, the economists have been proving for 50 years and more that socialism cannot abolish poverty, which has its basis in nature, but can only make it general, distribute it simultaneously over the whole surface of society. But all this is not the main thing. Quite apart from the false Lassallean formulation of the law, the truly outrageous retrogression consists of the following. Since Lassalle's death, there has asserted itself in our party the scientific understanding that wages are not what they appear to be, namely, the value or price of labor, but only a masked form for the value or price of labor power. Thereby, the whole bourgeois conception of wages hitherto, as well as all the criticism hitherto directed against this conception, was thrown overboard once and for all. It was made clear that the wage worker has permission to work for his own subsistence, that is, to live, only insofar as he works, for a certain time gratis for the capitalist, and hence also for the latter's co-consumers of surplus value. That the whole capitalist system of production turns on the increase of this gratis labor by extending the working day, or by developing the productivity, that is, increasing the intensity of labor power, etc. That, consequently, the system of wage labor is a system of slavery, and indeed of a slavery which becomes more severe in proportion as the social productive forces of labor develop, whether the workers receives better or worse payment. And after this understanding has gained more and more ground in our party, some return to Lassalle's dogma, although they must have known that Lassalle did not know what wages were. Following in the wake of the bourgeois economists took the appearance for the essence of the matter. Scrolls down.
Sorry.
Scrolls down. It is as if among slaves who have at last got behind the secret of slavery and broken out in rebellion, a slave still enthralled to obsolete notions were to inscribe on the program of the rebellion, slavery must be abolished because the feeding of slaves in the system of slavery cannot exceed a certain low maximum. Does not the mere fact that the representatives of our party were capable of perpetrating such a monstrous attack on the understanding that is spread among the mass of our party prove, by itself, with what criminal levity and with what lack of conscience they set to work in drawing up this compromise program? Instead of the indefinite concluding phrase of the paragraph, the elimination of all social and political inequality, it ought to have been said that with the abolition of class distinctions, all social and political inequality arising from them would disappear of itself. Caboose was on that earlier. Good job, Caboose.
Okay, the next part. Okay, I can read this part.
Sure.
The German Workers' Party, in order to pave the way to the solution of the social question, demands the establishment of producers' cooperative societies with state aid under the democratic control of the toiling people. The producers' cooperative societies are to be called into being for industry and agriculture on such a scale that the socialist organization of the total labor will arise from them. After the Lassallean iron law of wages, the physics of the profit, the way to it is paved in worthy fashion. In place of the existing class struggle appears a newspaper scribbler's phrase, the social question, to the solution of which one paves the way. Instead of arising from the revolutionary process of transformation of society, the socialist organization of the total labor arises from the state aid that the state gives to the producers' cooperative societies and which the state, not the workers, calls into being. It is worthy of Lassalle's imagination that with state loans one can build a new society just as well as a new railway. Cheeky. From the remnants of a sense of shame, state aid has been put under the democratic control of the toiling people. In the first place, the majority of the toiling people in Germany consist of peasants, not proletarians. Second, democratic means of German Volkschaftlich, by the rule of the people. But what does control of by the rule of the toiling people mean? And particularly in the case of toiling people, which, through these demands that it puts on the state, expresses its full consciousness that it neither rules nor is ripe for ruling. It would be superfluous to deal here with the criticism of the recipe prescribed by Bouches in the reign of Louis Philippe in the opposition of the French socialists and accepted by the reactionary workers of the Atelier. The chief offense does not lie in having inscribed this specific nostrum in the program, but in taking, in general, a retrograde step from the standpoint of a class movement to that of a sectarian movement. That the workers desire to establish the conditions for cooperative production on a scale, or on a social scale, and first of all on a national scale, and their own country, in their own country, only means that they are working to revolutionize the present conditions of production, and it has nothing in common with the foundation of cooperative societies with state aid. But as far as the present cooperative societies are concerned, they are they are of value only insofar as they are independent creations of the workers and not the protege either of the government or the bourgeoisie. I mean, that makes sense, right? You can't just like get liberation from the bourgeoisie. You like, that's ridiculous, you know, like it has to be independent, like done by the workers. That makes sense. Right?
See?
Okay, your turn.
We're number 4?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I come now to the democratic section. A. The free basis of the state. First of all, according to 2? Oh, according to 2 from earlier. Gotcha. First of all, according to 2, the German Workers' Party strives for the free state. Free state. What is this? It is by no means the aim of the workers, who have got rid of the narrow mentality of humble subjects, to set the state free. In the German Empire, this state is almost as free as in Russia. Freedom consists in converting the state from an organ superimposed upon society into one completely subordinate to it. And today, too, the forms of state are more free or less free to the extent that they restrict the freedom of the state. The German Workers' Party, at least if it adopts the program, shows that its socialist ideas are not even skin deep, in that instead of treating existing society, and this holds good for any future one, as the basis of the existing state, or of the future state in the case of future society, it treats the state rather as an independent entity that possesses its own intellectual, ethical, and libertarian basis. And what of the riotous misuse which the program makes of the words present day state, present day society, and of the still more riotous misconception it creates in regard to the state to which it addresses its demands? Bless you. There we go. Present day society is capitalist society, which exists in all civilized countries, more or less free from medieval admixture, more or less modified by the particular historical development of each country, more or less developed. On the other hand, the present day state changes with the country's frontier. It is different in the Prusso-German Empire from what it is in Switzerland, and different in England from what it is in the United States. The present-day state is therefore a fiction. Nevertheless, the different states of the different civilized countries, in spite of their motley diversity of form, all have this in common, that they are based on modern bourgeois society, only one more or less capitalistically developed. They have, therefore, also certain essential characteristics in common. In this sense, it is possible to speak of the present-day state in contrast with the future, in which its present root, bourgeois society, will have died off. The question then arises, what transformation will the state undergo in communist society? In other words, what social functions will remain in existence there that are analogous to present state functions? This question can only be answered scientifically, and one does not get a flea hop nearer to the problem by a thousand-fold combination of the word people with the word state. We're getting sassy. Between capitalist and communist society, there lies the period of the revolutionary transformation of the one into the other. Corresponding to this is also a political transition period in which the state can be nothing but the revolutionary dictatorship of the proletariat. Now, the program does not deal with this, nor with the future state of communist society. Its political demands contain nothing beyond the old democratic litany familiar to all: universal suffrage, direct legislation, popular rights, a people's militia, etc. They are a mere echo of the bourgeois People's Party, of the League of Peace and Freedom. They are all demands which, insofar as they are not exaggerated in fantastic presentation, have already been realized. Only the state to which they belong does not lie within the borders of the German Empire, but in Switzerland, the United States, etc. This sort of state of the future is a present-day state, although existing outside the framework of the German Empire. But one thing has been forgotten. Since the German Workers' Party expressly declares that it acts within the present-day national state, hence within its own state, the Prusso-German Empire, its demands would indeed be otherwise largely meaningless, since one only demands what one has not got. It should not have forgotten the chief thing, namely that all those pretty little gewgaws, I guess that's a word, all those pretty little gewgaws rest on the recognition of the so-called sovereignty of the people, and hence are appropriate only in a democratic republic.
Gugas.
Since one, yeah, gewgaws.
Okay.
I want one. I don't know what it is, but I don't think I have one. Since one has not the courage, and wisely so, for the circumstances demand caution, to demand the democratic republic, as the French workers' program under Louis Philippe and under Louis Napoleon did, one should not have resorted either to the subterfuge, neither honest, nor decent of demanding things which have meaning only in a democratic republic from a state which is nothing but a police-guarded military despotism, embellished with parliamentary forms, alloyed with a feudal admixture, already influenced by the bourgeoisie and bureaucratically carpentered, and then to assure this state into the bargain that one imagines one will be able to force such things upon it by legal means. Even vulgar democracy, which sees the millennium in the democratic republic, has no suspicion that it is precisely in this last form of state bourgeois society that the class struggle has to be fought out to a conclusion. Even it towers, even it towers mountains above this kind of democratism, which keeps within the limits of what is permitted by the police and not permitted by logic. That, in fact, by the word state is meant the government machine, or the state insofar as it forms a special organism separated from society through division of labor, is shown by the words the German Workers' Party demands as the economic basis of the state, a single progressive income tax, etc. Taxes are the economic basis of the government machinery and of nothing else. In the state of the future existing in Switzerland, this demand has been pretty well fulfilled. Income tax presupposes various sources of income of the various social classes and hence capitalist society. It is, therefore, nothing remarkable that the Liverpool financial reformers, bourgeois headed by Gladstone's brother, are putting forward the same demands as the program. And B. The German Workers' Party demands as the intellectual and ethical basis of the state 1. Universal and equal elementary education by the state, universal compulsory school attendance, free instruction. Equal elementary education. What idea lies behind these words? Is it believed that in present-day society, and it is only with this one has to deal, education can be equal for all classes? Or is it demanded that the upper classes also shall be compulsorily reduced to the modicum of education, the elementary school, that alone is compatible with the economic conditions not only of the wage workers but of the peasants as well? Universal compulsory school attendance, free instruction. The former exists even in Germany, the second in Switzerland, and in the United States in the case of elementary schools. If in some states of the latter country higher education institutions are also free, that only means in fact defraying the cost of education of the upper classes from the general tax receipts. Incidentally, the same holds good for free administration of justice, demands under A and 5. The administration of criminal justice is to be had free everywhere. That of civil justice is concerned almost exclusively with conflicts over property, and hence affects almost exclusively the possessing classes. Are they to carry on their litigation at the expense of the national coffers? This paragraph on the schools should at least have demanded technical schools, theoretical and practical, in combination with the elementary school. Elementary education by the state is altogether objectionable. Defining by a general law the expenditures on the elementary schools, the qualifications of the teaching staff, the branches of instruction, etc., and, as is done in the United States, supervising the fulfillment of these legal specifications by state inspectors is a very different thing from appointing the state as the educator of the people. Government and church should rather be equally excluded from any influence on the school, particularly, indeed, in the Prusso-German Empire, and one should not take refuge in the rotten subterfuge that one is speaking of a state in the future. We have seen how matters stand in this respect. The state has need, on the contrary, of a very stern education by the people. Other way around. But the whole program, for all its democratic clang, is tainted through and through by the Lassallean sect's servile belief in the state, or, what is no better, by a democratic belief in miracles, or rather It is a compromise between these two kinds of belief in miracles, both equally remote from socialism. Freedom of science, says paragraph of the Prussian Constitution. Why, then, here? Freedom of conscience, if one desired, at this time of the Kulturkampf, to remind liberalism of its old catchwords, it surely could have been done only in the following form. Everyone should be able to attend his religious as well as his bodily needs without the police sticking their noses in. But the Workers' Party ought, at any rate in this connection, to have expressed its awareness of the fact that bourgeois freedom of conscience is nothing but the toleration of all possible kinds of religious freedom of conscience, and that, for its part, it endeavors rather to liberate the conscience from the witchery of religion. But one chooses not to transgress the bourgeois level. I have now come to the end, for the appendix that now follows in the program does not constitute a characteristic component part of it. Hence, I can be very brief. Shall I check the appendix? We good? You want the appendix? You want me to read it?
You can if you want.
All right, let's go. 2. Normal working day. In no other country has the Workers' Party limited itself to such an indefinite demand, but has always fixed the length of the working day that it considers normal under the given circumstances. 3. Restriction of female labor and prohibition of child labor. The standardization of the working day must include the restriction of female labor insofar as it relates to the duration, intermissions, etc. of the working day. Otherwise, it could only mean the exclusion of female labor from branches of industry that are especially unhealthy for the female body or are objectionable morally for the female sex. If that is what was meant, it should have been said so. Prohibition of child labor. Here, it was absolutely essential to state the age limit. A general prohibition of child labor is incompatible with the existence of large-scale industry, and hence an empty, pious wish. Its realization, if it were possible, would be reactionary, since with a strict regulation of the working time according to the different age groups and other safety measures for the protection of children, an early combination of productive labor with education is one of the most potent means for the transformation of present-day society. 4. I'm down with some of that.
Yeah.
4. State supervision of factory, workshop, and domestic industry. In consideration of the Prusso-German state, it should definitely have been demanded that the inspectors are to be removable only by a court of law, that any worker can have them prosecuted for neglect of duty, and that they must belong to the medical profession. 5. Regulation of prison labor. A petty demand in a general workers' program. In any case, it should have been clearly stated that there is no intention from fear of competition to allow ordinary criminals to be treated like beasts, and especially that there is no desire to deprive them of their sole means of betterment, productive labor. This was surely the least one might have expected from socialists. 6. An effective liability law. It should have been stated what is meant to be effective liability law. Be it noted, incidentally, that in speaking of the normal working day, the part of factory legislation that deals with health regulations and safety measures, etc., has been overlooked. The liability law comes into operation only when these regulations are infringed. In short, this appendix also is distinguished by slovenly editing. Dixie at sawawe anima meam. I have spoken and saved my soul.
Okay.
I believe that's it's a Catholic thing.
Let me look it up.
It's like
Yes.
confessionary.
Yep, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, so we're done for today. I thought that was pretty interesting. I feel like he was just telling him to be like more precise and like less of a B word.
There, well, there was a lot of stuff in there that was vague, like left.
Mm.
I don't know if purposefully open-ended or naively open-ended,
Right.
and a lot of it seemed to be, I guess, kind of that utopian electoralist, like we're just going to vote ourselves into everything good.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Without
and
putting
that's
like specific like things in there to ensure like that things are good, right? They're just like, we're just gonna do it on vibes.
there's a lack of specifics,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, then kind of just, I don't know if I was say ignorant or naive, but a blissful kind of hope. But a lot of like the idea that like, yeah, that we are going to use the system to change the system. If I vote, if I vote hard enough, the
Yeah.
people who make my vote not count will let the vote count, and then I'll have what I need.
Right. Yeah. We can never expect to, get liberation from the ballot box.
I think it has limits, but what was it the quote? You can't dismantle the master's house with the master's tools.
Mm.
I feel like that does apply with the arguments LaSalle is making.
Yeah.
Personally,
No, I agree.
like, we're going to use the state until there isn't a state, because the state will let us.
It's goofy.
I will sign enough petitions to get them to be nice. Yes.
Yeah, that's how it works.
I'm going to push the button really hard.
Okay, who should we raid?
Oh, who is on?
Who is the silly serious? Who is this person? Are they, like, what do they do? PhD candidate with 2 dogs, but what else? What else are you? Are you sweet? What are you about? Does anybody know the silly serious? Or we can go to Historiopia. But that's...
The Historia Publica?
No, it's a different one, but it's attached
Ah.
to that. But it's in Portuguese, so you guys might not. I go there and I like just listen to him talk, and sometimes the chat is nice enough to translate what he says for me. So it's really sweet. Okay, but like, who is the silly serious? Do we know?
I have never heard that person. Somebody, anybody. Sean Stewart. I don't know how you feel about Bread Crochets. I like Clyde. Somebody's playing a game. Grom rated a little baby commie that's playing Warcraft, but that's playing a video game. And Zots is playing.
Brad is here. I didn't see Brad. Brad. We can go to Brad. I like Brad a lot. Brad is just
I bet
cozy.
he makes Gugos. Yeah, he's making Gugos right there.
Yeah. Rainbow
Rainbow Boys?
Yeah, Rainbow Boy. Oh, he's making a little bonk emote. That's cute. Okay. Tomorrow we will be back with the news. Maybe Hayes will be here. Who knows? If we can convince him to come. Otherwise, it'll be me, maybe, and maybe Blat, or maybe not Blat, or who knows? We don't know. Just show up tomorrow, or something.
Yeah.
And we'll tell you about the news. Exciting.
One day we'll make good on that Ahab emote, that all haze, all Blat. Yeah, all haze, all Blat.
Yes.
I think that's what that means.
Yep, that's what that means. You're exactly right. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, like I'm glad you let me read. If chat doesn't mind me reading instead of just yelling at people and text. I'm happy to be here. I'm not as big brained as the other people, but I can read words.
Oh, hush.
I do better with their words that we use today instead of 140-year-old words, but
I think
I
this
like all
was pretty
words.
okay, right? It wasn't too bad.
There are moments where I get lost because they will take a paragraph long sentence and just have 8 or 12 commas, and like eventually you kind of lose the pacing of what they're trying to get at. But repeatedly, just through what we read with the people we had in chat asking questions, they'd ask a question and it's almost like providence that it would come down. We'd have in what we're reading the answer, the explanation, so even if they weren't intending to read along, I kind of felt like chat was reading along by proxy.
Yeah.
So thank you, Burn Tower.
Thanks for being here, everyone. Murrow, Dorian Sapiens. I don't know if it's Chris cool. I don't know if you're cool, Chris, but thanks for being here. Adobe Cole.
Everybody and everybody's mother. You're all cool.
Not everybody's mother. Not everybody.
I love mothers. Mothers are great.
You mother lover.
I'm a mother lover.
Police! Hold it right there! Come on!
Don't shoot! I surrender.
We're not gonna shoot you! We want to re-educate you! You see, son? You're just the product of an alienated economic class, lashing out because you feel powerless and unloved. You've been disenfranchised by the bourgeois power structure.
That's right. I stole a car. I'm a thief.
Well, son, if you think about it, all property is theft.